Previously on Thor, Marvel gave the god of thunder and rock and roll a bit of a rest after a storyline that tied into the Avengers Disassembled event. In the story, Thor severed Asgard from the Yggdrasil in order to prevent the never-ending cycle of Ragnarok.
During the downtime, Marvel mulled several pitches to bring the Asgardians back. Finally, they hit on one from writer Mark Millar, where the gods would find themselves being reborn as ordinary citizens on Earth. However, Miller was busy planning out Marvel's Civil War event at the time, so writing chores were instead passed on to J. Michael Straczynski, best known as the creator of the television series Babylon 5.
Straczynski began Thor's return in the pages of Fantastic Four, which saw the enchanted hammer Mjolnir plummet to Earth just outside the small town of Buxton, Oklahoma. Many individuals, including Dr. Doom, attempted to lift the hammer to no avail, until a mysterious individual who turned out to be Thor's old human identity of Donald Blake picked the hammer up and placed it in a backpack.
Blake would go on to make a deal with Thor, who was residing in a limbo dimension at the time, to switch places with the deity on Earth for a while so that he could locate reborn Asgardians on Earth and Blake would stay in the limbo dimension. Thor set out, finding the likes of his friends Heimdall and the Warriors 3 alongside his brother Balder. Also, I inadvertently left a blooper in the final cut of one of my videos. However, Thor longed to find his on-again, off-again love interest Lady Sif. Instead, he found his mischievous adopted brother Loki in the form of a woman. Though feigning a change of heart, in reality, Loki stole Sif's body and transferred her soul into the body of an elderly cancer patient being cared for by Thor's on-again, off-again love interest, Jane Foster.
Loki continued manipulating things from afar as the Asgardians began to integrate themselves into the general populace of Buxton. In particular, the trickster focused on Balder the Brave, the oldest son of Odin, who thus had a every bit legit claim to the throne as Thor did.
Thor was willing to share power with Balder, which allowed Loki to continue manipulating things from the background. Loki would temporarily drop his female guise to travel back in time to find the location of Bor, father of Odin, and the battlefield that he died on. Returning to the present, Loki managed to resurrect Bor under an enchantment which made him think that he was surrounded by demons. Unable to recognize his grandfather, Thor took on Balder and beat the Elder God so bad that Mjolnir was damaged in the process. Unfortunately, the fight proved fatal for Bor, and when Thor realized what he had done, it was too late. Having killed another Asgardian, Thor was exiled, with Loki suggesting to Balder that the Asgardians should take up residence in Latveria with Dr. Doom.
I should point out that around this time, both Loki and Dr. Doom were part of Norman Osborn's Cabal, which I covered in my Iron Man World's Most Wanted review, so you can watch that if you want a little bit more. But for now, let's cover JMS's final run on Thor. This is Thor Volume 3.
Thor starts a small campfire and holds a spiritual discussion with Donald Blake. With Mjolnir missing a few chunks, neither knows if or how often the two will be able to switch places. The only way to find out is to try, so Thor strikes the ground with Mjolnir. The switch does work, but it's very painful, and Blake picks up the shards of his walking stick and prepares to return to Buxton. In Latveria, Doom holds a banquet to welcome the Asgardians' arrival. Doom and Loki point out the landscape is much more like the original Asgard than the flatlands of Oklahoma. Not to mention, Doom can relax the Latverian laws to better suit the Norse deities. Unfortunately, due to the place being tied to Thor's power, the new Asgardian dining hall in Oklahoma will have to stay behind. It appears that Balder is just naive enough to go along with the plan. Still, there are members of the Aesir who aren't enthusiastic about relocating, namely the Warriors 3 of Fandral, Hogun, and Volstagg. They elect to stay behind with Thor, with Volstagg deciding the only way the Voluminous One can, by smashing things. Then there's the saga of Bill and Kelda.
Kelda is a lesser Asgardian weather deity with wind manipulation powers who started a relationship with William, or Bill, owner of the local Greasy Spoon in Buxton. Their relationship has proved somewhat humorous amongst the Asgardians.
Kelda visits with Bill and tells him while she does love him, she can't stand to be separated from her people after just being reunited with them. He says he understands and the two kiss goodbye. However, Bill has a change of heart and rushes back to be with Kelda as the two get transported to Latveria. Back with Donald Blake, he attempts to repair Mjolnir by duct taping his walking stick back together. It's then that he's interrupted by, of all people, Loki. Loki explains that he's realized that this is actually Lady Sif's body. He doesn't reveal the whole truth, though, just chalking it up to a cosmic whoopsie-doodle. Still, Loki is willing to give up his female form so that Sif can be transferred back into it. However, Thor will have to hurry as Mrs. Chambers, the old woman whose Sif's soul has been grafted to, is near death. Thor wants to take off and immediately save Sif, but there's a drawback as Mjolnir is still broken. Any transfer is going to be dodgy. Unfortunately, Mjolnir needs special help that just can't be found on Earth.
Mjolnir was forged by the dwarven smiths of the realm Myrkheim out of the metal Uru. The hammer contains an enchantment that only those worthy of the power can wield it with ease. However, Thor doesn't exactly have access to those dwarven smiths anymore, and, well, he's going to have to look elsewhere for aid.
Thor manages to track down Doctor Strange in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey and asks him to try to repair Mjolnir. The sorcerer knows of a way, but there's a catch. To be fully repaired, Mjolnir will have to be tied to Thor's life energy. The next time it gets damaged, Thor will die.
That does beg an interesting question given some later developments in the Thor story. I mean, the only theory I can venture is that the bond was probably broken and reset or something when Thor died and was quickly resurrected during the Fear Itself event, which I covered back in episode 11.
Strange performs the ritual and repairs Mjolnir. Thor manages to make it to Jane's hospital and returns Sif's soul to her true body. Mrs. Chambers then dies in the process, but Blake manages to thank her for her sacrifice. She's okay with it though, as she's led a long life and was ready to go. Back in Buxton, the locals are a trifle upset to find the local diner closed as Bill is no longer in town. Thankfully, Volstagg knows how to make an omelet. It's then that Buxton meets its newest resident in the form of Sylvan, aka Lady Sif's civilian identity.
Lady Sif is Heimdall's sister and one of the strongest warriors in all of Asgard. She and Thor were very close when Odin banished the Thunder God to Earth to teach him some humility. Like I said before, Thor has bounced between romantic entanglements with Lady Sif and Jane Foster, to the point where Sif actually once possessed Jane in order to figure out what exactly it was Thor saw in her. Coincidentally, this caused the man that Jane was dating at the time to fall in love with Lady Sif.
In Latveria, Baldur meets up with Bill, who's struggling to adjust the cold. The two bond as Baldur gives Bill a cape lined with the finest unicorn fur. Bill tries to point out that Doctor Doom might not be the straightest arrow, to which Baldur is somewhat aware of. However, many Asgardians were restless in Buxton, and Latveria does have a similar landscape to the original Asgard. He tells Bill to keep his eyes open and his ears to the ground to tell him of any news. Later, Bill's accosted by a group of unruly Asgardians who mock him for being Kelda's pet. Kelda appears not to fight on her man's behalf, but rather instead to lend him a ice spear that is poison-tipped. This is enough to scare off the bullies. As this plays out, Baldur pays a visit to Heimdall. The Guardian has a vision of a great battle coming, and a lot of death with it. Unsurprisingly, it turns out that Loki and Doom are plotting something. The trickster has lent the good doctor some Asgardian mystics to work on upgrades for Doom's patented Doombots. Their purpose? Track down and kill Donald Blake, but leave the walking stick intact.
This would effectively trap Thor in the limbo dimension he stays in when Donald Blake is on Earth, as Thor could not transfer himself back. Funny thing, Loki does not explain any of this to Dr. Doom.
Back with Kelda and Bill, he explains that Baldur knows he's in a lot of trouble. The problem is there's just a lack of evidence, so Bill needs to go find the proof that Dr. Doom and likely Loki can't be trusted. Kelda lends Bill her sword and he promises to return home safely.
Bill should be okay. After all, he's only 3 days away from retirement.
While trekking through the Latverian highlands, Bill spots a light coming from a small cottage outside of Doom's castle. Inside, Loki and Doom are working on one of the thugs who harassed Bill earlier, named Endrick. They plan a live dissection out of hopes that they can learn the secret of Asgardian immortality. Unfortunately, Loki spots Bill and dispatches the other bullies after him. Bill draws his sword and prepares to defend himself. Sadly, the numbers game catches up with him and he is mortally wounded as Baldur rides up on his horse. The group tries to play it off as a hunting accident, but Bill reveals the truth shortly before dying. Baldur then fights off the traitors and carries the now dead Bill to Kelda. When Kelda learns of everything, she takes off in an enraged flight to take down Doom and Loki. Back in Buxton, the Doombots arrive and target Blake. Thankfully, Sif interferes with the Warriors 3 providing backup. Unfortunately, before Blake can summon Thor, one shot lasers through his back. Blake manages to bring Thor and finish off the Doombots. However, a wounded Donald Blake can't stay in the limbo dimension forever. He's going to need to be brought back to Earth and then taken to a hospital to get his wounds tended. Thor brings Blake back to Earth and the group gets him to a hospital just in time to save his life, though he'll walk with a limp due to some nerve damage in his left leg. It's okay though, Donald Blake is kind of used to that.
That concludes both Thor Volume 3 and J. Michael Straczynski's run on Thor. The thing of the matter is that Marvel was planning their next big crossover event, which was called Siege, to prominently feature the Asgardians, and, well, Straczynski had an open disdain for having to stop his story and suddenly write tie-in issues. It was something he only begrudgingly did during Civil War, and, well, that was pretty much it. So, yeah, I decided to just stop writing the book and pass it on to a different creative team. I mean, it's okay, but, yeah, again, it just does kind of leave things a little sour, but... Anyway, what did I think of this story? Well, I do think the artwork is really well done. I mean, I think it's actually better than Olivier Coipel's artwork, and that was spectacular. I mean, this is really top-notch. It's got this nice, rich, detailed, painted look to it, so, again, I think it's really well done. And I do think there's some good characterization in here. In particular, the likes of Bill and Kelda and Balder, I think, do really well in this book. Unfortunately, that's really where the compliments end. This just kind of feels not quite fillery, but just like setup. I know it's setup, but it feels a little too much like setup. I mean, it is really bare bones. There's not a lot of action in it. It's mostly character development. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just makes the story feel a little, well, paltry. That's the best way I could describe it. Not to mention, you may have noticed that I'm talking about Bill and Kelda a lot more during this volume than I was in the previous 2 volumes. Well, that's because all of their development happened here, and then they killed Bill off. So, yeah, it really makes them feel just a little pointless, doesn't it? If this run unfortunately does not end spectacularly or even memorably, just kind of blah, you know? So, I'm going to have to give Thor Volume 3 a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.